Hello, everyone. Hello again, and many thanks for joining this stream, second live stream and news update for the day. It is 29th of October. Now it's 8 past 7 in the evening, Moscow time, and I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments, and hopefully you will find this update informative and useful. And as always, I will ask dear friends, if I may, to like the video in case you actually find news segment informative and interesting. Also, leave some commentary. It might help to deal with the algorithm. And if you want to support my work in general, you can do it through several means. You can donate to this project through PayPal and Boosty platforms. You can subscribe to my Patreon page or page that I also have on the Boosty. There is a crypto wallet, and during the live streams, that is now, you can use super chat feature on Rumble or Rant as it called there to donate and same time highlight any question or the topic, and you can become premium subscriber on Rumble. Everything helps, of course, big time to maintain this project and stay on it full time with regular overtimes actually. And many thanks to everybody, of course, who supported and continues to support. And dear friends, during this morning's live stream, I missed I was on my own, as I said during the stream, and I missed super chat on Rumble, and I don't know how to recover chat now to highlight. So my apologies for that. I'll try to be more careful in this regard. But yet again, when I'm alone operating, it is difficult to keep eyes on all the programs, right? I'm trying though. Anyways, dear friends, that's been said. Let's start the news segment itself. And as you can see in the headlines, dear friends, Russian President Vladimir Putin made quite an interesting, probably surprising statement for many, which is that Moscow proposes ceasefire, temporary ceasefire, for Kiev regime's units that are encircled in Pokrovsk, Mirnograd agglomeration, and also in Kupiansk area. Initially, number of Telegram channels reported that this offer was only about Pokrovsk, but later on, some additional information became available, and all the media outlets here in Russia are reporting about it. Let me give you some details on that. So Russia is prepared to temporarily suspend operations against encircled Ukrainian units in Kupiansk and Krasnoarmeysk. Krasnoarmeysk is Russian name for Pokrovsk, dear friends, and I guess Russian president, while saying so, meant Krasnoarmeysk Dimitrov agglomeration or Pokrovsk Mirnograd agglomeration. As I said, Russia is preparing to temporarily suspend operations against encircled Ukrainian units in Kupiansk and Pokrovsk, while media representatives visit the area. Russian President Vladimir Putin has stated. The president announced that Russian forces have completely surrounded Kiev's troops in Kupiansk's city in Ukraine's Kharkov region and in Krasnoarmeysk or Pokrovsk, located in Russia's Donetsk People's Republic. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov had previously stated that up to 5,000 Ukrainian servicemen are encircled in Kupiansk, and there are another 5,500 near Krasnoarmeysk or Pokrovsk. But actually, it was not just Peskov, but earlier it was the head of Russian General Staff, Valery Gerasimov, who actually reported to Russian President Vladimir Putin about these developments on the line of contact. But anyways, to continue, in a statement on Wednesday, Putin announced that Moscow is willing to allow journalists to enter the encircled areas, including representatives of foreign media, and would cease combat operations against Kiev's forces for the duration of the media coverage. The political leadership of Ukraine must make a decision on the fate of its citizens, which are currently encircled, Putin said. He also warned Kiev against staging any provocations while media outlets are in their area. Encirclement of Ukrainian troops in Kupiansk and Krasnoarmeysk was initially reported over the weekend by Chief of the General Staff of the Russian Armed Forces, Valery Gerasimov, who stated that the Russian military was continuing operations to eliminate the trapped enemy forces. And dear friends, probably you are wondering now what is going on, why Russian side is offering this temporary truce, temporary ceasefire, what journalists gonna enter this area and for what purposes, what is going on. And I have no any less questions than you do, dear friends. I also not quite understand what is going on. Maybe Russian president with this statement is just offering opportunity for a Kiev regime to basically save the lives of its encircled military personnel. Sometimes, this Akama razor principle, it does works, and in a complicated situation, simplest resolution might be the most efficient or correct resolution. And maybe therefore that's the actually agenda behind this offer from Russian side, that let's save the people there, because like more than 10,000 troops of Kiev regime are encircled, and if they can lay down arms and surrender, that will save them, and also it will save, of course, lives of Russian military personnel and health. So in this regard, this offer definitely does make sense. But on the other hand, how you can trust the Kiev regime or representatives of the Kiev regime, I'm quite sure there is quite a number of representatives of Kiev regime's so-called secret services, terrorist organizations, quite a number of neo-Nazis probably too, that can stage any level of provocation, especially if journalists are allowed into these encircled areas. So definitely more information is needed. How this ceasefire will be organized, we don't even know yet how Kiev will respond on that. I would not be surprised at all if Zelensky either today or tomorrow will say that, well, this is a trick on part of Russian side. There are no encirclements, neither in Kupiansk, neither in Pokrovsk, Mirnograd areas. So therefore, we are not accepting no ceasefire or something like that. We should expect statements from Zelensky and his affiliates in this on this manner, right? But nevertheless, let's see what additional information will be available for tomorrow morning, and of course, I will share this additional information too during tomorrow's first live stream. But well, information is interesting, at least interesting, right? I think. And when it comes to Pokrovsk, dear friends, you might wonder what's going on in Pokrovsk right now. And I already reported earlier in my updates that Russian armed forces established control over the most of their southern part of Pokrovsk and infiltrated significantly on the northern part of city, which is divided by railway, basically almost in half. And right now on your screen, you can see latest updates on number of maps, and these red lines, by the way, on the northern part of Pokrovsk shows areas where Russian forces liberated the territories, right, and established their presence. Clearly, Kiev regime's defense lines are unable to stop Russian advances. Nothing to be said about all the main supply and support lines that are for Kiev regime's garrison in Pokrovsk and Mirnograd that are under complete Russian control. So it definitely does make sense, from humanity standpoint and also from military standpoint, for the Kiev regime to accept Russian offer and save the lives of these 10,000 plus military personnel. After all, they could be, exchange of prisoners of war, right? And the Kiev regime can recruit or mobilize these very soldiers again and use sometime in the future. So there is quite a number of reasons why Kiev might or should accept this offer. But for a media standpoint, from a standpoint of maintaining this false narrative, especially in the West, that Kyiv regime is holding the lines and it's a stalemate, nothing is happening. Zelensky might refuse, actually, or or London might refuse. We should keep in mind that it's not really up to Zelensky; it's up to globalists and first of all London. What kind of answer Russian side will receive? Let's continue with some other news, dear friends. And well, today Russian president also made quite a number of other interesting statements. He was visiting Central Military Hospital in Moscow, and he was engaged in a conversation with the Russian military personnel that was recovering there. And during that conversation, Russian president spoke about Burevestnik, a nuclear-powered missile system. Also, Russian president mentioned Poseidon, underwater autonomous vehicle, also nuclear-powered. And let me give you some details on these statements. So Russia's unlimited range Burevestnik cruise missile is based on a breakthrough in nuclear reactor technology that allows a high degree of miniaturization and a quicker attainment of operational power. President Vladimir Putin said on Wednesday, landmark test of the nuclear-powered weapon was announced last week. The president praised the engineers behind their achievement during a meeting with the injured Russian soldiers at the military hospital. Their missile reactor is comparable in output with the reactor of a nuclear propelled submarine, but it's 1,000 times smaller, which is, by the way, quite impressive. I mean, if numbers are correct, if this reactor in Burevestnik is as powerful as reactors on nuclear submarines, then that's quite a level of miniaturization, by the way, while not losing generating power. I'm not a physicist. I have no freaking idea how Russian engineers managed to do this, but this story is more we learn about it, more looks like something from Iron Man, right? So Putin also stated that the key thing is that where regular reactors need hours, days, or weeks to go online, this one launches in minutes or seconds, which is quite impressive, obviously. Discoveries made during the creation of their unique power plant will find applications in civilian life, for example, in building energy infrastructure in the Arctic, the president said. Meanwhile, the electronic components shielded from radiation that were developed for the Burevestnik are already being used in space missions and will be utilized in Russia's moon exploration program. The president said last week Putin announced a successful test launch of Burevestnik, during which the projectile reportedly traveled more than 14,000 kilometers. During a meeting this week, he reported a successful trial of the Poseidon system. On Poseidon, I will give you information in a minute, but when it comes to Burevestnik, I think it's worth noticing that according to a reporter from Valery Gerasimov, head of Russian General Staff, during the latest test flight of this nuclear-powered cruise missile, Burevestnik, this weapon system was in air for about 15 hours. So it has unlimited range because it can stay in air for a very significant time. Some media outlets even suggested that Burevestnik can stay in air after launch for months and months on end, which is well, quite something, really, right? Not that surprising because its power source is nuclear reactor, but nevertheless, as a technological achievement, is quite impressive. And one might only hope that Russia don't have to use this next level of weapon systems ever. Most of them are nuclear, designed to be mainly nuclear-tipped weapons, right, including Burevestnik. And when it comes to Poseidon, dear friends, as I said, Russian president spoke about this too, and let me give you some details on that too. So Russia tested the Poseidon underwater vehicle on Tuesday. President Vladimir Putin announced it during a meeting with special operations personnel at the Central Military Hospital in Moscow. And we have quote here. Yesterday, we conducted another test of another promising system, the Poseidon unmanned underwater vehicle with a nuclear power plant. For the first time, we were able to not only launch it from a submarine using its booster motor, but also to start a nuclear power plant, which the vehicle operated for a certain period of time. This is huge success, President said. Poseidon has no equal in terms of speed and depth, and it's unlikely that anything similar will appear anytime soon. Putin emphasized that there are no ways to intercept such a device. The president first announced the development of this drone, underwater drone, in his address to Federal Assembly in 2018. It can carry both conventional and nuclear munitions and strike enemy aircraft carrier groups, coastal fortifications, and infrastructure. Excuse me. According to open sources, the length of the Poseidon is about 20 meters, diameter is 1.8 meters, so it's a massive, right? And the weight is about 100 tons. And what RIA Novosti is not reporting here, according to yet again open sources, because real information is obviously classified, but according to open sources, a Poseidon underwater nuclear powered weapon system will carry nuclear warhead with a power of about 100 megatons. 100 megatons, by the way. Some sources are even reporting that Poseidon might carry warhead with a 400 megaton power. I'm skeptical of that. 400 megaton is just I don't know, man, like super crazy power, right? But 100 megaton, yes, I can believe in that, because if you remember, dear friends, during the Soviet era, Soviet scientists actually built their most powerful warhead, nuclear warhead ever created, and that warhead was detonated on Novaya Zemlya nuclear polygon, nuclear test site in north of Russia, on island Novaya Zemlya. And according to reports, yield of that nuclear weapon was 57, 58 megatons. And shockwave from the blaster travel around the Earth 3 times. Impact was felt 100 miles away, right? In Norway, by the way, explosion was felt, right? And the scientists themselves were kind of shocked, according to yet again some reports in open sources. Soviet scientists were themselves shocked by the power that they unleash, and they scrap their plans to build their 100 megaton device, although they were already working on the matter. So technology is there, right? Obviously, technology is much more advanced now, because this Tsar bomb was tested like 50, 60 years ago, right? And obviously Russian scientists, Russian engineers are capable of to create much more powerful warheads. But nevertheless, 400 megatons for Poseidon looks like, it seems to me to be like excess force. 100 megaton is more realistic, but in any case, by the way, 400 megatons or 100 megatons, it's a tremendous power, and definitely this weapon system will stand alone as a most powerful weapon ever created by humanity for quite longer time, I guess. And the Russian president today also spoke about Sarmat, intercontinental ballistic missile, which can carry enormous number of warheads. And the Russian president said that Poseidon actually is much more powerful than Sarmat with all the warheads that it can carry. So president did not say exactly what yield is going to be that Poseidon underwater autonomous vehicle, nuclear powered autonomous vehicle, but it's definitely going to be in megatons, right? Dozens and dozens and dozens of megatons for sure. So quite impressive developments there. One might ask, why Russia needs all these weapon systems if Putin will never authorize to deploy them, if Putin will always continue, as long as he is in power, always will continue to exercise restraint, no matter what kind of provocations West gonna come up with, or Western elites. And well, I can see that argument, but on the other hand, these nuclear weapons are not really designed to be used. It's a sort of deterrent, right? And that's why I said, let's hope either Burevestnik or Poseidon or any other Russian nuclear system will be ever used. We don't want that, isn't it? Because that would mean a nuclear war, most likely full-scale nuclear war, and that's going to be end of humanity. So we don't want that to happen, isn't it? But development of this next generation of weapon systems should further enhance Russian nuclear triad and the Russian nuclear deterrent. Hopefully this will work, right? And globalists, neocons, and their allies at least would not go as far as to begun nuclear provocations against Russia, right? From them, anything should be expected, right? And I said many times before that I'm quite sure Western elites have plans to transfer this terrorist regime of Zelensky into a nuclear terrorist regime. So therefore, risks that Western elites will actually escalate even on a nuclear level is there. But, if it comes to it, then Russia definitely has how to respond. What else can I say, right? And Kartapolov, by the way, former Russian military and currently MP in Russian parliament, one of the high-ranking MPs. He is head of chairman of the State Duma Defense Committee. He stated basically that Poseidon can disable entire states, not just some particular area. It can take out not just, let's say, aircraft strike group, but entire states can be disabled. Let me give you some details from his statements. Poseidon is an exceptionally powerful weapon capable of disabling entire states and currently has no countermeasures. State Duma Defense Committee Chairman Andrei Kartapolov told the reporters, and I don't think anyone will disagree with him, because yet again, can you imagine explosion of 100 megaton like in a kilometer away, let's say, from the shore of any state? That will create a massive wave, right? If you detonate this weapon deep into sea, like kilometers deep, it would not have much impact, right? But if you detonate it kilometer away in the shallow waters, let's say, right, kilometers away from shore, that explosion will create enormous wave, radioactive wave, by the way, and it will obviously decimate coastal area. It will decimate industrial areas, ports, and military bases, naval bases, anything on its path, right? And in this regards, yes, definitely Poseidon can disable entire states, actually. All the states on Baltics, for example. I don't think there is any country in Europe that can survive after a couple of Poseidons will visit their shore lines, right? Especially on Baltics, which is shallow anyways, right? You can detonate it in the middle of Baltics and you will create massive tsunamis that will go all sides, right? But anyways, yet again, let's hope this will never happen. But I think information is quite interesting, not just in regards to these weapon systems, but also in regards to this offer from Russian side of temporary ceasefire for encircled troops of Kiev regime, thousands of troops of Kiev regime in Pokrovsk, Mirnograd, and Kupiansk cities. Let's see how NATO will respond on that under Western proxy Kiev regime. To continue, dear friends, let me give you this report. I did mention this in today's first update, but I think it's worth repeating that because different timing, isn't it? Our first live stream is approximately at 11 in the morning. Second, live streams nowadays, I'm launching at 7 in the evening, right, 7 p.m. And some members of our community are able to watch both videos, but for some other members, morning live stream is more convenient. For some others, evening live stream is more convenient. So sometime I will repeat some news. So Russian armed forces have liberated more than 20 settlements in the Dnipropetrovsk region, 21 to be more precise, according to TASS News agency. And 21 settlements in just last couple of months since Russian troops entered the Dnipropetrovsk region. I think this is quite impressive. Serious beachhead is being built by Russian forces in the Dnipropetrovsk region, and once order comes from Moscow, I guess Russian troops will be in a position to launch sectoral scale offensive in the Dnipropetrovsk region, and I'm quite sure that offensive will develop much more rapidly than in DPR, LPR. Because, first of all, as I said in my previous updates, Zaporozhye, Dnipropetrovsk region not as urbanized and heavily fortified as DPR, LPR, or other sectors of the front. And secondly, it's a steppe area mainly. And Kiev regime's forces will not really have much opportunities to hold on to anything, right? So therefore, I think once order comes, Russian troops will advance in the Dnipropetrovsk region much more rapidly than we have seen in heavily fortified, heavily urbanized parts of DPR, for example, Donetsk People's Republic. Also, I want to repeat this report that Belarus will place the Oreshnik hypersonic weapon system on a combat duty in December. This information is coming from a press service of Belarusian President Lukashenko, and I guess this information is also among those that Western militaries and Western political class probably will pay attention to, because if Burevestnik and Poseidon are designed to be mainly nuclear tipped, Oreshnik is a bit different story. It's a hypersonic weapon system, a hypersonic missile that carries dozens of warheads, although those warheads can be both conventional and nuclear, right? So therefore, chances that Oreshnik will be used in near future are much higher than probabilities that Russia will ever use either Burevestnik or Poseidon. So therefore, I guess this information will be thoroughly studied in the West, right? Information about deployment of Oreshniks in Belarus. RIA Novosti is also reporting that United States has notified allegedly NATO allies of troop reduction in Europe. So Washington has warned Budapest, for example, and other NATO allies about reducing the number of American troops in Europe. According to Romanian Defense Ministry's website, Department of the National Defense has been informed of the reduction in the numbers of US forces deployed to NATO's eastern flank as a part of review of the US military's global posture. Among the units whose rotation in Europe will cease are those destined for Romania and stationed at the Mihal Kogalin-Sianu Air Base. This decision was expected as Romania maintains constant contacts with its strategic partners in the United States. And dear friends, it's up to you, of course, if you will believe in this report from Romania's defense ministry or not. I am skeptical, really, that US will reduce its military personnel. They might withdraw some forces, but they will bring back some others, right? Maybe that's what is happening, reshuffling, sort of, right? But I don't really believe US will decrease its military presence in Europe. Nah, not happening. Meanwhile, of ambassador of US in NATO, Matthew Whitaker, continues to threaten Russia, continues to issue some strong statements. This morning, I shared their information about Whitaker's statements about plenty of more steps that US might take to harm Russia in terms of finances, economy, and so on. And well, during the interview at NBC, he went to say that soon Kiev regime will receive another military aid package for $15 billion. Let me give you some details on that. So the U.S. Permanent representative to NATO, Matthew Whitaker, stated on NBC News that NATO countries plan to allocate up to $15 billion to Ukraine for weapons. As we enter 2026, their key will be consistent funding at the level of 12-15 billion for the purchase of critically important weapons to defend Ukraine. Whitaker said, as previously reported, up to $2 billion is planned to be allocated to Ukraine by the end of 2025. This is additional 2 billion, by the way, on top of another 2 billion that was already, I guess, spent to purchase some US weapon systems, and those weapons are, I guess, already being delivered to Kiev regime. So yes, money flow is not stopping, weapons flow is not stopping from the West or Kiev regime to prolong this proxy war that West is waging against Russia. And unfortunately, there is not even a slight chances on the horizon right now. It seems to me that we will see de-escalation anytime soon. Most likely, opposite will happen, and in shorter, globalists, neocons, and their allies will go ahead with the next phase of escalation. RT is also reporting that, and by the way, this attempts to constantly escalate with Russia and prolong this proxy war as much as they possibly can is happening on part of Western elites, despite their knowledge that they have lost this war. They know it, right? And time to time, some officials, some high-ranking officials in the West are actually saying it openly. So it seems like a target for the globalists right now is to prolong this war against Russia at least for another 2-3 years, if they can, right? Because as I said in my previous updates, militarization programs in Europe mainly are focused to be finished first, at least first phase of accelerated militarization to be finished by 2029, 2030, right? And I guess European NATO member states are planning to sacrifice as many people on Kiev-controlled territory as possible to prolong this conflict at least 2-3 years, so that for 2028, 2029, 2030, potentially, they will be in a position to enter this conflict and have hopes for anything, right? I think European states are clearly being prepared for direct war with Russia. If you ask me about it a few years ago, I will say no, never. I could not imagine that European elites will go as far as to actually push for direct war with Russia. But now I clearly, see that that's exactly what they are doing, and they are not ready for now. They think they will be ready for 2028, 29, 2030, and therefore they will try as much as they can to prolong current proxy war as long as possible and sacrifice as many people on Kiev-controlled territory as they can. They will sacrifice everybody, literally, right? Although they are mistaken. They are mistaken because they can buy all the weapons they want, right? By 2029 or 2030, they can buy thousands of tanks, thousands of infantry fighting vehicles, hundreds of planes and missiles and this and that. But how they going to buy fighting spirit? How they going to buy fighting spirit? You tell me, dear friends. I don't think European societies, if you look broadly what is going on there, I don't think European societies actually are ready or will or have any willing to fight for in a war that their elites want to wage. I really don't think so. So therefore, Europe not going to be capable of defeating Russia, neither in 2028, neither in 2029, neither in 2030, neither ever. Period. I mean, that's how it is, right? My personal opinion, you might agree with me, you might disagree with me, but I think there is no fighting spirit in the West, by the way, and there is no matter how much majority of societies in the West being brainwashed with the Russia hate and all that stuff. I don't think those very same brainwashed people want to die while fighting Russia. One thing is to hate Russians, everything Russian, right? And the other is to actually fight Russians. Very different things there, right? And I truly don't believe Europeans, even brainwashed Europeans, by the way, want to fight Russians and find out how it is. But we will see. We will see. Meanwhile, Deputy Foreign Minister of the Russian Federation, Ryabkov, named the conditions for a new meeting between Putin and Trump. The topic of meeting between Trump and Putin still makes headlines, by the way. But yes. Anyways, let's go through details here. So, decision on a new meeting between Russian and U.S. presidents Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump will be made after its content is prepared. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov told the reporters, "Once we will prepare the content, then I'm sure the presidents will decide on their meeting on a new contact." Said the senior diplomat. As for the timing and location of the meeting, Budapest was certainly mentioned publicly, but we've said from the day one that the content is the most important thing. We believe the framework created by our leaders meeting in Anchorage must be filled with concrete details, agreements, and decisions, and it is on this basis that we must move forward, Ryabkov emphasized. He also noted that a mutual understanding on how to do this was reached in Alaska. Okay, by the way, okay. I think here Washington clearly demonstrated that they no longer care about anything related to Anchorage summit. Trump demonstrated this with his policies, right? Not just with his statements, but with his anti-Russian policies. Other U.S. high-ranking officials demonstrated it also, and therefore I find it a little difficult to understand why Russian high-ranking officials still are referring to that Anchorage summit as if that meeting still has any meaning. It does not. Trump no longer remembers it, right? And whatever agreements were potentially reached in Anchorage are no longer valid, because that's what happens when you do agreements with Trump. He will not honor anything, right? And it's not just Trump, by the way. It's a U.S. political class. It's a Western political class. No matter what kind of agreements you have with them, they will not honor it. And I don't think we I mean Russia, actually need any more confirmations of this. We already have enough lessons, right? Do I have to repeat, man? Minsk 1, Minsk 2. Even before that, in 2014, I remember clearly Western elites promised that they would not push for overthrowing Yanukovych's government. And literally, after 24 hours, they did exactly that. isn't it? We can go even further. After collapse of Soviet Union, Moscow was promised that NATO would not move eastwards even for an inch, right? Did they honor this promise? No. And there is dozens and dozens and dozens of other instances, right, when certain agreements being reached, but was never honored by the Western elites. So I don't know. I don't know why Russian high-ranking officials still believing that they can reach some agreement with the West, man, and West will honor it. Come on, it's not happening. It's just not happening, right? And dear friends, let me check. Let me check now if there is any questions or the comments through Boosty, Moosty, or Super Chat. I missed one in this morning. I don't want to end up in the same situation, but I guess there was nothing for now. So I will continue. Next news that I want to share with you is that Atlantic, by the way, I believe this is one of the oldest so-called media outlets in US, isn't it? Atlantic is reporting that US is on a track to lose a war with China. That's a headline. So China will win if the war with the US breaks out, according to Atlantic. The modern war is about production capacity, logistics, and technologies. As US currently has technological advantage, China will win the long conflict because of US diminishing production. Atlantic is concluding, and you know what? I would argue that US don't really have a technological advantage over China in any field at this point, right? Including military production. Trump might say all day longer that US is producing best weapons ever in this world, but this is just not true, right? This is just not true, by the way. And there is many areas where China is producing actually more advanced weapon systems than US, right? And there are definitely certain fields where Russia is producing much more advanced weapon systems than US. In certain cases, US is not even producing those weapon systems because they lack technological capabilities. So I would argue that the US definitely has no advantage, technological advantage on China, and the US definitely has no advantage in terms of production capabilities. But I think most important thing is to never forget that a war between US and China never going to be with conventional weapons. War between open, direct war between US and Russia never going to be conducted only with their conventional weapons. Nukes will be used, right? 100%, by the way. There isn't. I don't understand why Western media outlets are pushing these nonsensical ideas that there can be war between US and Russia, between NATO and Russia, or between US and China and Western China without using nukes. It's not happening, man. Nukes definitely will be deployed, and that means the end of everything. And this kind of attitude, this kind of narratives that being pushed, that, well, we can have a war, we just don't use nukes. This is extremely dangerous, isn't it? Because Western elites might actually believe in that they can wage a war against us, and if they didn't deploy nukes, we would not deploy either. We will, by the way, and there are a number of Russian high-ranking officials already said that if there is a direct, full-scale open war with NATO, obviously Russia will use nuclear weapons because there is no parity, by the way, between the two sides, right? On one side, there is a 40-plus countries. If you take not just NATO, but all the countries that are part of this collective West, and on the other side, it's just Russia. So obviously, to make sure that our enemy is not gonna be able to win, we will deploy nukes in that case. And Russian high-ranking officials already said that openly, right? This is not something that is hidden, and that's why, by the way, there was changes made in a doctrine, in Russian nuclear doctrine, and China has the similar approach because they know also that they cannot fight war with these 40 plus countries from collective West. So if a full-scale war erupts, they will begin deploying nukes. And that's why they are focused very much to double down on their nuclear arsenal. And according to some reports, by 2030, China will have about 1,500 nukes, maybe even more, right? In another 5 years, the nuke numbers might reach 2,000, 2,500. And at that point, even I think even 1,500 is enough, basically, to reach a point with US of mutual destruction, guaranteed mutual destruction, right? So, yes, US will lose war, by the way. US will lose war even not just with China or Russia, by the way, because there are going to be no winners in that war. US will lose war even in Venezuela. Soon, very soon, right? If people of Venezuela will fight. American leadership is forgetting that real life is not a freaking movie that they love to produce in Hollywood, right? Where one American soldier is killing million Vietnamese there and million North Koreans somewhere else, and they're decimating whole continents. No, man, real war is not a movie, and I don't think U.S. militaries actually are capable of high intensity conflict. When they last time win anything since the Second World War? Never. So that says it all, isn't it? Meanwhile, well, U.S. President Donald Trump will have opportunity to talk about war with China with Chinese leader Xi Jinping. Today, we have a report that our meeting will actually most likely take place on October 30 in South Korea, in portal city of Busan. Let's see. This is still, by the way, ministry report from media, but already official statements being made too about it. So Chinese President Xi Jinping will meet with the U.S. President Donald Trump on October 30 in Busan. Information is coming from Chinese Foreign Ministry. It's official. It's official, although I don't know, anything might happen, by the way. Today, Trump might say some stuff that will derail this potential meeting with Xi Jinping that should take place tomorrow, right? But let's see. I don't really understand what Xi Jinping gonna talk to Trump, why he gonna waste his time. Does China has not enough examples when U.S. is not honoring any agreements whatsoever? So, I mean, I don't know. Let's see, by the way. Let's see. And when it comes to, yet again, U.S. and criminal activity of the U.S., by the way, on this planet, U.S. political class, let's say, right? Well, we have this report from UN, United Nations, where General Assembly voted on Cuba's resolution to end U.S. embargo. You can see how votes went, by the way. 165 countries supported illegal U.S. embargo on Cuba to be lifted. 7 countries voted against it, 12 abstained. And you think U.S. will listen to the world community, to opinion of this world, vast majority of this world, 165 countries? Of course they wouldn't. Of course they wouldn't, by the way. And that's all you need to know about what kind of regime is there in U.S., right? And who runs that empire. That's it. And same can be said about collective West in general, by the way. right? All these talks about international law and their international norms and their this and that, it's all fake talk on part of Western. They only recognize their norms and laws and rules only if it suits them. If not, they just don't care, right? Even if whole world is against them. And you can see a clear example when entire world, basically most of it, is against the US, calls US to end this illegal embargo and genocide basically on Cuba. Who knows how many people die on Cuba due to this criminal embargo that US has imposed decades ago, right? And Washington would not listen. They will do nothing about it. That's how it is, unfortunately. And I will end this news segment, dear friends, on this news that NVIDIA is the first company, American NVIDIA is the first company to reach 5 trillion market value. Company hit 4 trillion just in July of this year. And you tell me, dear friends, if I'm wrong when I'm saying that US GDP is completely fake numbers, based on completely fake numbers. So US markets are inflated, US companies are inflated, they're beyond belief, right? And they're all are fake, right? All these numbers. Come on, man. 5 trillion for NVIDIA, company that has nothing, literally nothing, and depends on supply from other countries. 100%. Not just 1%, 2%, 10%, or 50. 100% depends on other countries. And this company somehow worth 5 trillion. This is insane, man. This is insane, right? Who is investing? Who is putting money in this garbage, man? I don't know, but this bubble that is being created on US markets gonna burst, man. It's gonna burst, and it will be much worse than dot-com crisis. It will be much bigger than dot-com crisis. I think so. We will find out, but I don't know. If you believe that NVIDIA worth 5 trillion, okay, I have a Mount Everest to sell if you want to. But if you are skeptical that NVIDIA or any other American companies or Western companies worth trillions and trillions, then well, we are on the same page. It's all bubble, man. It's all fake stuff, and we'll eventually bring down markets in the West, and thousands and hundreds of thousands potentially people gonna lose their savings that they have invested in those freaking fake companies, right? And that's about it, dear friends. That's about it for today's news segment. Hopefully you did find it informative and useful. And if so, please like the video if you have not yet. Leave some commentary. This might help to reach wider audience. And there was no super chat, dear friends. Let me just check once again, make sure that I'm not gonna miss. How I missed this morning, I don't know. There are not even comments on Rumble. Just one commenter I can see right now from Miki. Hello, Levan, and everyone. Hello, Miki. Thank you for your attention. And yes, there is nothing on no super chat. I mean, on Rumble, and nothing also through Boosty and other support platforms. So that's it then. I will end this live stream on that. Okay, thank you for your time, dear friends. Have a wonderful day, and take care. See you tomorrow.